Hi, I'm Nick from Cut Off Your Hands, and I'm breaking down Hate Somebody from our record HLLH. Cut Off Your Hands, or Shaky Hands as it was called at the start, that began sort of end of 2005. So the four of us, me, Brent, Mikey and Phil, kind of with that first EP, pretty much, yeah. Yeah, our usual songwriting process for Cut Off was generally, it became this thing because of our intense touring. Like when we started, I had these 6 songs ready to go and I taught the band them and then they played them. And they played them way better than me because Brent's a way better drummer and Phil's an actual bassist, etc. And Mikey was always a better guitarist than me. But they were my parts, but then they would play them and record them. We never got into a practice space. We'd just play on the road. And then it would be like, we'd come home in the summer and everyone else wanted to hang out with their friends or their family or their girlfriends, whatever, and I would just be in my room recording because that's what I loved doing. I wasn't keen on going to the beach. I didn't want to have a holiday. I didn't want to have a weekend. I just was in love with recording. And so that's how it worked. So I'd do the whole thing by myself. And then at the end of summer, they'd come back and be like, oh, I've got 10 songs. And then they'd learn them. And the other guys did that too. So Brent he's a great songwriter too. And he would bring I'd maybe bring 40 songs, Brent would bring 10, Phil would bring 5, and that's how it would go. And then we would choose the 10 that we wanted to record out of that. Hate Somebody as a song came much later than, so by this stage it was 2013 when I wrote that song, or 2014. Okay, so lyrically in the song, the first line of Hate Somebody is some creeps on these city streets in the neighborhoods we all live. Take the shortcut with their coin strut, fat market auction fed. And so I kind of love when I get to sing that line on stage every time because I really believe it. And early on in Cut Off, I was sort of singing stuff that just fitted the words. The words fitted the music, and I was a music-based producer, so I'd make words fit the music. But with this record, and particularly that song, I think it was the first time I was like, this is a line, almost like a protest line, or it's something that I can stand behind, and I feel proud to say those words. And it's sort of like what it's all about is that some creeps on these city streets where in the neighborhoods we live, they come along, they've got cash, they've got a shortcut to a cultural capital or a vibe of a community, which is in Metro, it says that you should live in those areas because they've got these cafes or whatever. So they're shortcutting it to that with their cash, And so that social or that community vibe which they're buying into has been established by the very people that they're kind of not happy about. Yeah, I think, well, the music and the words they always have a relationship and they affect each other in different ways. They impact, just like a music video impacts music too. You always, even for myself, once I've seen a music video of music that I've written, I go back and it makes me hear the song in a different way because it pulls out a spirit that's in it. And the same with the lyrics and the music. The lyrics kind of bring something like like I was saying, the music is asking for something, and then the lyrics, I spend a lot of time with it, and that becomes its own pursuit, and I get lost and in love with that process and that challenge of making the words become something that I think it could be. So the recording of Hate Somebody, this was the start of this project which has become the album, HLLH, which we released in October this year. Hate Somebody, along with On the Sea, which is also on the record, were the first 2 that we did, and we recorded them at the Lab Studios, but not in the nice big studio, which is really lovely, but in Jeremy Toy, who's our co-producer, and he plays guitar with us live and synths and all sorts, and played on the record. Amazing genius. We did it in his little pokey room, which is maybe it's under a staircase, and it's kind of, it's quite charming though, but always really hot and it would be really smelly. And because we've been used to in the past recording in either somebody's parents' house where thankfully they go away somewhere and you're allowed to use this full house, or a beautiful recording studio. But this was really cramped in, and so we had to do things a little bit differently. So we had to record we played live, but we recorded the drums first, and then we would lay the bass over the top, and then the guitars, and then all that. So it's more like that kind of bedroom feel. And oftentimes we'd also just record like the drum kit without the cymbals, and so that gives you a bit more control in the mix as well, and then later dub the cymbals on over the top. That's quite a good little trick to do if you don't have a really great live room. Right, so vocal performance, I guess, is a tricky one. It's an interesting thing because, yeah, like if you've got an emotive song like "Hate Somebody" where you want to kind of project that and get those words sort of sounding like that, I don't know. It's a bit of a strange art. I think you can't well, personally, I feel like I can't overthink it. Once I've done it too much, it becomes tired. There's always a sweet spot. It's sometimes around like maybe the 8th or 9th recording, and you get 3 takes that are good, and then after that goes downhill. I just don't like having anybody in the studio with me. I find Jeremy will be okay, but sometimes I even just tell him to leave, and then I can just be less self-conscious. I also like not having anyone there, like an engineer or a mixing person, because they tend to think it's really personal to me, like what my voice sounds like. And I've had engineers and producers really drive that vocal performance, and I end up sounding really affected and like they think it's good because it sounds like something they've heard before, but I think it's awesome, especially if you're from New Zealand and we've got these weird little accents. Like if you just sound like yourself as much as possible. Depends what you're doing really, but like for me anyway, like I've definitely established that over the time from when I was trying to sound British or American to now it's me, and I like it or lump it, you know. So I like to have no one in the studio with me, and then I edit my own vocal. That's the best way. So for young artists coming through, and it's the tricky question of like how you negotiate outside influences like producers, engineers, or your own control. I don't know. I think it's always good to like learn as much and listen as much to people, but sort of also take it with a grain of salt, because they're there because you're interesting to them. So I would always personally probably run the like at first like learn how to do it yourself, like learn how to craft it so that you don't have to rely on anyone else. But collaboration is always awesome, so you can really learn so much. Okay, so so Hate Somebody came out in I think 2016, it was our first release for like 6 years, and we were quite surprised. I mean, I think it was like played on The Rock a bunch, or like Hodaki. There's not a lot of places where in New Zealand like a band like us gets played, which is interesting because we're definitely more in the pop realm of a lot of the indie bands around, but there's still like limited avenues. So like the B-Nets have always been really supportive of us, and like BFM, I remember they were all over it, and that was great, and the other stations. But we kind of just released it with this little kind of almost like TikTok or Vine video, which was just like our longtime collaborator Joel Kefali did all these paintings, and then he set them up on his TV screen and then just shot it, and it's just like flicks between that, and it's like a 30-second or 20-second loop. And so that was rad, just to have like even just something visuals for the YouTubes for when you search a song and you want to play it, which is how I listen to a lot of music. I think people liked it. I think people were kind of like, oh, rad, like this is sort of sounds like old Cut Off, but it's sort of grown up a bit. I think that was the general vibe. It was like, they sound like they've matured. It's a bit slower, but it still has that energy from before. And so the shows that we played, they were our first shows in ages, and we did the Others Way Festival, and that was real fun. I remember being real surprised because we hadn't played for so long. And it was like a packed venue in Galatos, and everyone, it was the first time we'd played in ages where everyone was singing the words back to us.